As David Dow reports, the Twilight Zone became a nightmare.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at entertainers that suddenly suffered medical emergencies and passed mid-performance or soon after.
There's a lot of high winds that come over the top of the building, and that particular day the winds were up to 40 miles. I believe they were blowing at least 40 miles per hour.
Fat Man Scoop, rapper. While he may not have been one of the most famous rappers to emerge from the scene, his contributions are still recognized by music lovers everywhere. Primarily known for his collaborations with Missy Elliott and Mariah Carey, Fat Man Scoop was a well-loved fixture within the community.
Let's go now, let's go now, here we go now, here we go now, let's go now, let's go now.
In August of 2024, he was hyping up the crowd during a concert when he suddenly collapsed. While CPR was attempted at the moment, he ended up having to be transported to a hospital. There, he passed away from what was determined to be natural causes.
Great person and a great entertainer as well. Really down to earth. Very good to people, and it's just sad when something like that happens.
I'm so sorry for his family and his friends and everyone who loved him. You could tell that he very much enjoyed performing.
The event serves as an incredibly poignant yet unfortunate reminder that death can occur at any moment to anyone. Dale Earnhardt Sr., racer. While it may not be a traditional performance, he still provided entertainment to fans across the nation. NASCAR is a beloved spectacle, with several racers becoming icons within the sport.
Some people become heroes because they live above the rest of us. But the real heroes are the ones who never leave us. They never forget where they came from, and they honor us by embracing us back.
Dale Earnhardt Sr. was one of the best, having won dozens of races during his career. While participating in the Daytona 500 in 2001, a collision with another racer caused him to crash into one of the walls, making him slide off the track. It wasn't until the final match finished that people realized how bad the crash had been.
This is undoubtedly one of the toughest announcements that I've ever personally had to make. But after the accident and turn forward at the end of the Daytona 500, we've lost Dale Earnhardt.
Earnhardt had suffered a basilar skull fracture, killing him instantly. The highly publicized tragedy resulted in widespread emotional distress from his fans, and much-needed safety measures finally being put into place. Paul Mantz, stunt actor. Stunt actors know their line of work comes with an element of danger, but there are still various mechanisms in place to prevent them from suffering any permanent harm. However, some unexpected issues are unavoidable, resulting in injury and even death. One such case was the demise of Paul Mantz, a highly esteemed stunt pilot. While filming a scene for the Flight of the Phoenix in 1965, he was flying a custom-built plane when he accidentally struck a hill. His attempts to correct his issue made things even worse. The aircraft broke into two pieces and crashed, resulting in his instantaneous demise. It was later speculated that he was under the influence at the time of the accident, but those rumors were never confirmed. Jean-Baptiste Poquelin, Molière. Playwright, actor. Deaths occurring mid-show isn't a modern phenomena. It's been occurring for centuries, with one of the most prominent occurring in the 1600s. Jean-Baptiste Poquelin, more commonly known as Molière, was a playwright primarily known for his comedic works.
His impact on both the French language and the French culture are hard to understate. Here in Paris, there are reminders of him around every corner.
He had been plagued with pulmonary tuberculosis throughout most of his life, and it reared its ugly head during a performance of The Imaginary Invalid in 1673. Even as he coughed and bled in front of the crowd, he insisted on finishing. He closed out his monologue with a final hemorrhage before being taken home, where he met his end hours later.
À la fin de la pièce du Malade imaginaire, Molière s'effondre sur scène. Et à ce moment-là, il est ramené chez lui d'urgence et il est mort en fait non pas sur scène, mais quelques heures plus tard chez lui dans sa maison rue de Richelieu.
His dramatic public display and eventual expiration became a legend within the theater community. Tyrone Power, actor. While many unanticipated deaths seem completely random, some have underlying causes. From the 1930s through the 1950s, Tyrone Power garnered a reputation for playing romantic adventurers.
I never dreamed dancing could be so wonderful.
I found it rather fatiguing.
If you'll excuse me, senor, I wish to retire.
So sorry.
While filming a duel scene in Solomon and Sheba, he suffered a massive heart attack and died while in transit to the hospital. Though it seemed to happen out of nowhere, it was later revealed that he smoked 3 to 4 packs of cigarettes a day, which more likely than not played a pivotal role in his sudden fate. The tragic event caused production to temporarily stop, and the project was nearly cancelled entirely before finally being finished and released in 1959.
This is not your kind of game, brother. I never thought of it as a game. I fight by your side. And the sword of victory, Solomon.
Lee Morgan, jazz musician. While most unexpected fates mid-performance are due to unforeseen health issues, others are more violent. Lee Morgan was a highly respected jazz trumpeter, having recorded with icons like John Coltrane and Dizzy Gillespie. In 1972, he was cut down at the height of his success. He'd been playing a New York City club when he got into a fight with his girlfriend, which eventually escalated into him being shot. At first, it seemed as though he would survive, due to his injuries being non-fatal. However, heavy snowfall in the area made it impossible for first responders to reach him, resulting in him bleeding out and dying at just 33 years old. Had he survived, he could have continued his prolific career for decades to come. Renato Di Paolo, actor. Seeing someone die during a show is already traumatic enough. Having it without anyone even noticing is even more horrific. In 2000, Renato Di Paolo was tasked with portraying Judas in a play centered around the trial and execution of Jesus Christ. In one scene, the disgraced apostle takes his own life. The scene, wherein he was tied to a tree by a noose, had gone off without a hitch previously. However, one night the rope tightened, causing him to inadvertently asphyxiate. Neither the crowd nor his fellow actors noticed, and the play continued on before they realized he was unconscious. To make matters worse, it was being filmed, capturing both his horrific final moments and the delayed reaction to them. Sid James, actor, comedian. Some comedians will commit to jokes so well that even their co-stars learn to take them in stride. While this usually results in improv gold, it has also led to disastrous consequences. Sid James was a highly acclaimed actor who dominated the stage, screen, and radio.
Now then, sir, what do you fancy?
Yes, please. Yes.
Which one?
I'll have one of each.
He was such a household name that his death would have been shocking no matter the circumstances. When he collapsed while performing in a play, his fellow actors assumed it was a dark joke. It wasn't until they tried riffing with his corpse that they realized something was wrong.
I really honestly thought it was a gag, so I started ad-libbing and saying, "Oh, Sid, I've come all this way to see you, and this is the way you treat me." And then looked back and thought he would continue with the show, but still nothing, so then I thought there was something terribly wrong.
Even when the curtain eventually dropped, the audience still thought it was a bit. However, the laughter quickly died when they learned the truth, that the comedic legend had died. Cesar Cuauhtemoc Gonzalez Barón, Silver King, wrestler. Although it's dramatized and scripted, wrestling still isn't without its risks. Some find this out through injury, and others find out through more permanent means. In 2019, a highly respected Mexican wrestler known as Silver King was in the middle of a seemingly normal match when he was pinned, and didn't get up again. He'd suffered a heart attack without anyone noticing, including his opponent, who continued striking him even after it was clear he wasn't getting back up. It took several minutes before people realized what had happened, and by the time medical help arrived, he had passed away. The tragedy resulted in the league finally strengthening their safety measures, including requiring multiple medics and ambulances be on standby. Dick Shawn, actor, comedian. Comedians aren't afraid of joking about anything, even their own fates. Character actor Dick Shawn was no exception. While he'd been known in life for his roles in films like The Producers, he also found success as a stand-up comedian. In 1987, he'd been performing a normal set at the University of California when he keeled over on stage. The audience did nothing, assuming that it was all part of the act. It took several minutes before he was finally examined. Even as CPR was being administered, some were still convinced it was all one big, dark joke. It wasn't until his cause of death was revealed that they all realized they'd been witness to his final moments alive, and had laughed. Leonard Warren, opera singer. A lead baritone in the New York City Metropolitan Opera, Leonard Warren was known for the power and range of his voice. His career spanned just over 20 years. He sang in over 600 shows and had a recording contract with RCA Victor. In 1960, Warren played the role of Don Carlo in Giuseppe Verdi's La Forza del Destino. Reports claim that, at the end of the Act 3 aria, upon his exit, Warren collapsed on stage. He was declared deceased by the Opera House physician merely 25 minutes later. Weirdly, the aria actually opened with the line, "To die a momentous thing." Warren's cause of death was publicly announced as a stroke.
Sailors are Romans and sailors are men.
William Ellsworth Robinson, magician. William Ellsworth Robinson was a magician around the turn of the 20th century who took on the persona of a Chinese man and went by the stage name Chung Ling Soo. Some pretty terrible stuff, we know. Robinson specialized in illusions and eventually became a wealthy vaudeville performer. One of his most famous illusions was the old bullet catch trick. A bullet is visibly loaded into a modified gun, which prevents it from actually leaving the chamber, and the magician, who's been holding some bullets of his own, pretends to catch the ones seemingly fired from the gun. However, one night in 1918, the gun accidentally fired the bullet, fatally piercing Robinson's lung. Nick Menza, drummer. Nick Menza was the drummer for heavy metal band Megadeth between 1989 and 1998, and recorded with them for 4 of their studio albums. Though this was perhaps his most famous turn in the spotlight, Menza played for a total of 12 bands and had a fruitful career. However, his history reads like a series of unfortunate events. For one, he had to leave Megadeth because of medical issues and was never asked to return. Then, a tour was cancelled due to both the guitarist and the bassist's sudden deaths. There was also a power saw incident where he nearly lost an arm. In 2016, while playing on stage in California, Menza collapsed 3 songs into the show. He was pronounced dead from congestive heart failure at 51 years old.
You know, Nick was a friend before he was even in the band. He was on tour with us on So Far So Good So What, and then obviously was an integral part of the big thrust of our legacy. You know, certainly the fans love him, and we loved him as a friend even when he wasn't in the band.
Irma Boulay, pop star. Irma Boulay was a popular pop singer in Indonesia and frequently used snakes in her shows, draped over her shoulders or handled as she sang. However, with great snakes come great risks, and Boulay was the unfortunate victim of her own sidekick. During a performance at a party in 2016, she was performing with a king cobra who had not been defanged. After accidentally stepping on the snake, it bit her in the thigh. Boulay was reportedly offered anti-venom by an offstage handler, but refused it and continued to perform for another 45 minutes. Unfortunately, the effects of the venom began causing her to throw up and have seizures. She died at just 29, shortly after being rushed to the hospital. Mitsuharu Misawa. Mitsuharu Misawa was a Japanese professional wrestler. He debuted in 1981 under the persona of Tiger Mask, a popular gimmick in the field at the time which was based on a 1968 manga series. Misawa went on to have a rich career in the sport until 2009, at which time he told an interviewer that he wished to retire in 2 years' time. 4 days later, on June 13, 2009, Misawa participated in a tag team match. During this match, Misawa took a back suplex from his opponent, after which he collapsed and was shortly pronounced dead at 46. The cause of death was deemed to be a fatal separation between the upper cervical vertebrae of his spine. Sib Hashian, drummer. Sib Hashian was a replacement drummer and best afro wearer for the band Boston in the late 1970s. He went on to record and perform with a number of artists, and in 2017, he was a guest drummer on a Legends of Rock-themed cruise. During a set aboard the ship, he collapsed on stage and could not be revived despite efforts. His cause of death was reportedly a heart attack.
We all loved Sibby so much, and he was a big part of my growing up. So to be able to become a personal friend to Sibby was a big deal to me, but he just had a big heart. He would show up at our foundation events and help us out.
Interestingly, one of Hashian's daughters, Lauren, married Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Johnson wrote a touching social media post in reference to Hashian upon his passing, referring to him as his second dad. Sam Patch, Daredevil. Known as the first daredevil in America to gain fame, Sam Patch made a name for himself by jumping from impressive heights. Sometimes referred to as the Jersey Jumper, Patch would leap into waterfalls or rivers from cliffs, bridges, and platforms.
Sam Patch goes to the falls, screams out to the crowd. Some things can be done as well as others. Takes a few steps back, runs and takes a leap into the air, and then plunges feet first in his trademark straight as an arrow dive.
Patch truly achieved the height of his career in autumn of 1829 with a jump into the Niagara River from a specially built 125-foot ladder.
He became the first famous American daredevil after jumping into the river near the base of Niagara Falls.
Later that year, on a Friday the 13th, Patch would jump into the Genesee River in what was oh so horribly advertised as Sam's last jump. Patch either jumped or fell from the platform, and his failure to achieve the proper entry coupled with a rapid temperature change from the descent are likely what caused his death at only 30 years old.
Today, a leisure boat traveling along the Erie Canal bears Sam Patch's name.
Tiny Tim, singer, musician. Herbert Boutros Ghari, known professionally as Tiny Tim, was a singer, ukulele player, and musical archivist.
Wait till you see this, pal. The toast of Greenwich Village in his first appearance anywhere, Tiny Tim.
You likely know him best from his falsetto cover of the 1929 song Tiptoe Through the Tulips, which is sometimes used in horror films to really creep everyone out. His career in music spanned from the early 1960s all the way to his death in the mid-90s. In September of '96, Tiny Tim had a heart attack at a ukulele festival in Massachusetts. He spent 3 weeks in the hospital and was advised not to perform due to a multitude of health concerns. Just 1 month after this, however, Tim took the stage at a gala benefit and suffered another heart attack on stage during the performance of his most popular song. Red Fox, actor. Born John Elroy Sanford, Red Fox was a well-known stand-up comedian and actor.
My great-great-grandfather, one of the first black politicians in Mississippi. He ran for the border.
His long and illustrious career took him from dark nightclub stages to network television and film. He's perhaps best known for playing Fred Sanford in Sanford and Son, a series which aired from 1972 to 1977.
Hello, Fred. Hello, Woody.
Hello, Fred Sanford, and how are you today?
Fine up to now.
Will you stop that?
Okay. I'm quite fine, Esther. And may I lie and say how nice it is to see you.
He also starred in a short-lived sitcom, The Royal Family, in 1991, and it was on the set of that show that he met his unfortunate end. Fox, then 68, was called in for rehearsals, but after running his lines, he collapsed. Eerily enough, it was believed he was joking at first, as his Sanford character was known for faking heart attacks. This one was real. Mark Sandman, singer, musician. Mark Sandman is perhaps best known for forming and fronting the alternative rock band Morphine from 1989 until his death in 1999.
Hello, this is Morphine, and you are watching 120 Minutes on MTV.
He was an eccentric, mysterious personality and was known for altering his instruments to achieve new and experimental sounds. During a performance with Morphine in Palestrina, Italy, Sandman collapsed on stage. At only 46 years old, he had had a heart attack, which was aggravated by stress and the elevated temperature of the venue. His impact on the music world is evident in the impressive amount of tributes that poured in following his death.
I always see those guys when I go to Boston, and it's always very bittersweet because I think in both directions, immediately we're back in Palestrina again.
John Eric Hexum, actor. John Eric Hexum was a promising up-and-comer when an accident on set ended his life abruptly. After moving to New York City in 1980 to pursue his dreams of stardom, he starred and co-starred on a few TV shows and smaller film productions before landing the role of a CIA operative on the series Cover Up.
Better yet, we can listen in on his phone calls, put a transmitter in his car, and let him take us to the big guy.
I like that. You're starting to think like me.
Oh, I hope not.
During a lapse in the filming of the show's 7th episode, Hexum decided to play with the handgun his character was given, which was loaded with blanks. Hexum, thinking they were harmless, emptied all but one, with the intention to play a game of mock Russian roulette. The blank's impact ended up fracturing his skull, and he was pronounced brain dead nearly a week later at just 26 years old.
Hexum's death is a loss for his family, friends, and fans.
Johnny Ace, singer. This one is strikingly similar to John Eric Hexum's death. John Marshall Alexander Jr., more well known as Johnny Ace, was a rhythm and blues artist.
I'll forever love you the rest of my days.
He had a number of hits in the 1950s, and it's safe to say he would likely have had a fruitful career. However, Ace had the habit of carrying and playing with a revolver when he was bored. On a set break backstage, Christmas Day of 1954, Ace's boredom became lethal. A bass player present at the time said that someone warned Ace about the dangers of being so careless with his revolver. To this, he responded, "It's okay, gun's not loaded, see?" and shot himself in the head. He was only 25 years old. Carl Wallenda, tightrope walker. Carl Wallenda came from a family of entertainers and started performing when he was just 6 years old in the early 1900s. He eventually formed the Great Wallendas, a high-wire daredevil act that performed throughout Europe.
As far as the audience, they just loved to listen and watch him perform, and when he would get down on a microphone, they would love to listen to what he said. He was just had that kind of a magnetic personality.
There were many accidents and tragedies associated with the act throughout the years. Some of them included Wallenda's sister-in-law Yetta, who fell to her demise, his son-in-law Richard, who was killed from accidental electrocution, and his adopted son Mario, who was paralyzed from the waist down in a pyramid stunt. Wallenda, however, persisted in his endeavors till the bitter end. At 73 years old, he tried a tightrope walk between two 10-story towers of a hotel in Puerto Rico, but violent winds and unsecure wiring caused him to fall to his death.
Carl Wallenda is the fifth member of the family to die while walking the high wire, the latest in a series of tragedies that began in 1962 with the 7-man pyramid, developed and perfected by Father Carl.
Leslie Les Harvey, guitarist. Les Harvey was a Scottish guitarist who played in several bands in the 1960s and early 1970s, and co-founded Stone the Crows.
Just read your paper.
He was actually asked to join the Animals, but turned down the offer, opting instead to play in his brother's group. He later joined the Blues Council, a band that recorded only one album before a tour bus accident took the lives of its vocalist and bassist. On a stage with Stone the Crows in Swansea, England in 1972, Les Harvey simultaneously touched his electric guitar strings and a microphone that was unearthed. With no ground, Harvey was electrocuted and passed away at just 27 years old. Victor Vic Morrow, actor. Victor Morozov, known as Vic Morrow, was an actor. He debuted on screen in the 1955 film Blackboard Jungle and subsequently appeared in a number of other movie and TV roles. In 1982, Morrow was cast in a segment of Twilight Zone the movie.
Hey! Bill!
How you doing? All right. Can't stay long. My wife's relatives from Florida.
He played a prejudiced man taken back in time to different eras where he would have been on the receiving end of fatal racism. In a scene taking place during the Vietnam War, Morrow, 53, and 2 illegally hired child actors were being chased by a helicopter, which was a mere 24 feet above them during filming. Pyrotechnics from the set fractured the helicopter blades, which sent the vehicle crashing to the ground, taking the lives of Morrow and the 2 children.
Today's tragedy is raising many questions about safety conditions in movie making, as well as the labor laws which protect child actors.
Brandon Lee, actor. If the name Brandon Bruce Lee sounds familiar, it probably should. He was an actor, martial artist, and the son of the famous Bruce Lee. Brandon followed his father's footsteps and became an actor, with his first appearance being in a 1986 Hong Kong film titled Legacy of Rage. He appeared in a number of lesser well-known movies before ultimately landing the lead role of Eric Draven in The Crow, an adaptation of a comic book series. The role arguably would have launched Lee's career. Unfortunately, an on-set accident would prevent this. While filming, Lee was fatally wounded when he was shot with badly improvised dummy rounds from a revolver, a needless death at the hands of crew negligence.
He was in, critical condition. Somehow at that point, I don't know, I've got chills right down my spine, and I felt that he's not going to make it.
Mr. Lee's heart stopped, and efforts to resuscitate him were unsuccessful.
Wednesday afternoon, Brandon Lee was pronounced dead.
Owen Hart, wrestler. Owen James Hart was born into a wrestling family. His father, Stu, was a big name in the industry, and 7 of his siblings were wrestlers, with Owen and his brother Brett being the most successful.
Well, Owen Hart's got to take more chances, more risks than does his brother Brett. I look for Brett to wrestle a very deliberate match here.
Hart's career, from amateur to WWF contender, started in 1986 and ended with his unfortunate death. In May of 1999, during a WWF pay-per-view event titled Over the Edge, Owen Hart was slated to enter via harness from the rafters of the Kemper Arena. He'd performed this stunt before, but something faltered in the equipment that night, and he fell 78 feet, landing chest first on the ropes of the ring. He died of internal bleeding from blunt force trauma at age 34.
I think the reason his legacy is going to live on forever, you hear constantly about the type of man that he was. Anyone who shared a locker room with him said he was wonderful to be around. So I think the real legacy of Owen Hart is not just, again, what he did in that ring, but who he was as a person.
Tommy Cooper, comedian. Tommy Cooper was a Welsh comedian and magician, known for wearing a red fez while performing.
Look, the blue tie, white spots, blue tie, white spots. You just go, it's the blue tie, it's the spots.
He got his start while serving in the British Army in the 1940s by joining an army entertainment group. His act combined magic and comedy, and he spontaneously borrowed a waiter's fez during a performance one night, which he would wear regularly thereon. His career, featuring TV appearances mostly, spanned almost 40 years.
Other people express their feelings through poetry. But tonight, I will express my feelings by speaking to you through my trumpet. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
In 1984, however, Cooper collapsed and had a lethal heart attack in the middle of his televised act. It was at first believed to be part of the show, but people quickly realized that it was not. Steve Irwin, animal handler. Steve Irwin really holds a special place in all of our hearts. And though it was tragic, we can say he died doing what he loved.
Talking to this little lizard, and he's looked at me like that and gone, chomp, right on my nose.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you get him to do that now? I'd love to see that.
Try it.
His father was a wildlife scholar with a particular interest in herpetology, which is the study of amphibians and reptiles, while his mother worked in wildlife rehabilitation. Steve was thus born into a love of animals and nature right out of the gate. In 1996, The Crocodile Hunter premiered on Australian TV, and a year later, US and UK audiences were introduced to the enthusiastic croc handler.
Unbelievable. She's looking around. I'm far more intimidated than she is.
He became a national sensation, but unfortunately, while Irwin was filming in the Great Barrier Reef in 2006, a short-tailed stingray pierced his chest. Our favorite wildlife expert sadly met his end at 44 years old.
Does your mind ever wander back when you're lying on the snout of a crocodile and you think of Steve?
Oh, I miss him.
I bet.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Dimebag Darrell, guitarist. Darrell Lance Abbott, better known as Dimebag Darrell, was a metal guitarist. In fact, he was held as one of the best of all time. Darrell played for a number of bands, but was primarily known as the lead guitarist for Pantera, which he formed with his brother, Vinnie Paul. Pantera released its first album, Metal Magic, in 1983, when Darrell was just 16 years old. Later, a second band, Damage Plan, was formed with his brother around 2003, following the dissolution of Pantera.
Y'all are number one. We're back with a Damage Plan to blow it up everywhere.
In 2006, Damage Plan was playing at a nightclub in Columbus, Ohio. During their first song, a crazed fan rushed the stage and shot a 38-year-old Dimebag Darrell multiple times before being tackled by the head of security, who also lost his life in the scuffle. Which onstage death did you find the most tragic? Let us know in the comments.
There's a lot of high winds that come over the top of the building, and that particular day the winds were up to 40 miles. I believe they were blowing at least 40 miles per hour.
Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.